Hello considered longevity lifestyle designers, this is Gavin here with secretsoflongevity.com. Gearing up for the Bitcoin conference in Toronto next weekend, which I'm going to be attending. I've been thinking a lot about various freedom type issues. Bitcoin's of course a decentralized currency and sort of being called the libertarian or anarchist currency for that reason. And something I've been seeing a lot of because I follow various liberty-minded blogs and Facebook pages and Twitter accounts. I see ongoing debates between people, and I always find it interesting to hear different perspectives and different takes on things. And something that I always ascribed to, which was the push for labeling genetically modified organisms, GMOs, within the United States, but also Canada. That's something I always thought was a good thing because I'm against GMOs in terms of them being pushed and just brought out into the public without long-term sustained studies having been done. That whole debate of health and environmental stability and the history of Monsanto, which is obviously the biggest out there with the largest market share of genetically modified organisms, that's another video for another day. I'm working on one. As a side note, I've actually just got my computer all set up and ready to go again. I've been having computer problems for the last 2 weeks, which a week ago ended up in me having to get a new one. And it's been good, except there's some faulty stuff along the way. But it is all up and running smoothly now, so I'll be back to being able to do more well-researched videos. But I wanted to talk about this idea of labeling, and of course the first look at it from a libertarian mind is that no, we don't need to do labeling, it's just another regulation the government's setting up. So despite whether or not GMOs are good or bad, the philosophy that underpins the libertarian or anarcho-capitalist movement, even many other smaller government type movements, is the non-aggression principle. So any overarching committee that starts to turn into something that forces people who don't want to participate in something to contribute to something, then that is just simply morally incorrect. And that's true about labeling, to finance whatever small amount of cost it would be to set up some oversight on produce that would force labels onto certain companies and not others that met the organic requirements or non-genetically modified organism requirements. That is both a burden on people who just don't want to pay more taxes, and it's also something that forces companies and businesses who are actually probably more likely to have to cover the costs, not necessarily the consumer, but of course the consumer pays the tax through buying the products. Companies that have to buy for the labeling, they have to be forced to do something, and they should have the freedom to do whatever they want and just let market forces take their course. Now, as complex as that might seem to some people who aren't familiar with that type of philosophy, that's a fairly simplistic view, and I more or less agree with that. Even if genetically modified organisms are harmful, which is a stance that I've generally taken, there's a few things we have to take into consideration about the larger picture of what's going on both with Monsanto and these other organizations, but also governments at large. So to look at sort of a behind-the-scenes aspect of this that I don't see happening in the debate is that this product has this benefit when put out into production. So you kind of have the whole thing fall apart when you consider, well, there's already government involved. So this extra bit of government, almost like fighting the industry it's already promoting, first of all, they're not going to do that. Monsanto, other GMO corporations, as well as big agribusiness in general, is one of the most heavily subsidized industries in North America. This just makes you wonder, would the industry even exist if those subsidies weren't there? On top of that, you have to recognize that the only reason that industry exists is because patents can be created for unique genetic creations that are created in labs, which cost millions to create and to fund and to research and develop. And then there's also, of course, whatever testing they do before claiming. We've seen so many things happen with the labeling pushes in the US where it's just on the verge of passing, and then you hear about, all these lobbyists descended on Washington or whatever state was attempting to pass some ban or pass a labeling law, and they get switched with pressure and incentives and that type of thing. Now, recently, I believe it was just on one of the islands of Hawaii, but perhaps it was all of Hawaii. GMOs have been banned, so there's no GMOs being grown there. I'm not sure if they're still being imported or not, but that's a step in the right direction in my opinion. Once again, it's a ban, and libertarians, including myself, thinks there shouldn't be bans like that. You have to let the market decide. But if you're actually someone that believes that these are harmful, that there's been these corporations created out of coercion because it's based in the patents and the subsidies, which are based in violence and the state holding guns to people's heads, then we have to know that we need to fight back. We need to protect ourselves from this, and a ban could be likened to having a law against murder. So it's not as extreme, I know, but people of a libertarian mindset still believe that there's certain acts that are inherently wrong. Rape, assault, theft, and murder that fall under aggression. If a corporation has both aggressed in terms of taking our money by taking it through taxes and the subsidies, and is then selling us this product which is harmful but is claiming otherwise, that would be both false advertising and attempted assault. So just like it's not wrong if you're existing in a society, if you're a libertarian, to use the police, if you're having someone try to break into your home or being assaulted, you call the cops. Even though you don't believe in police in this form as a public service, you'd prefer a private service such as what we see rising up in Detroit and doing so well in terms of helping the population deal with sociopaths in their communities. But this is happening in another way, and we need all the help we can get. And if we can convince an aspect of government to block itself, because it's technically, Monsanto is just another arm of the government because it's so heavily subsidized by it, if we can get it to block itself, then all the better. And in the long run, it would probably save people money anyways, because this huge leech on the financial health of North America can die back a bit, use less money, and whatever money was put into labels might actually be beneficial, or even bans. Another thing you have to consider, which I haven't heard discussed at all, is these countries that are said to be needing GMOs by people that are pro-GMO. You know, there's actually a lot of people who are pro-GMO who, as far as I know, still eat organic food. You hear these things like the White House eats all organic food, or the cafeteria at Monsanto serves all organic food, and that's quite hilarious. It's like this extreme hypocrisy, and you really have to wonder the intentions behind it. It's like that thing, if you promote something but you're not doing it yourself and you think that's what other people should be doing, do it yourself and be the example, and we'll see what the results are. Anyways, these countries in other parts of the world that supposedly can benefit from GMOs, why are they having so much trouble with their agriculture? What's happened politically that has caused this disruption in development of better agriculture? Why hasn't there been an export of how to help these countries create the infrastructure needed to help them feed their populations? Well, if you know anything about history of politics in other countries, you know that the majority of the developed world was taken advantage of by imperialist countries in the past. There's, you know, these European imperialism, and at this point it's U.S. imperialism. Some academic war room thought, okay, we're going to set up a puppet government here, we're going to dictate how everything happens, and we're going to put them in line, and then when that collapses and there's no longer that tie, they still have that shell of a political system, and it goes on. And also a little bit of Russia and China, and it's the remnants of the states that they set up from some European boardroom. You know, it's a centrally planned, but not even centrally planned, it's like far removed planned. And and you see these countries cycle through dictators, and they just never develop the capacity to have sustainable agricultural practices. Then you also have to consider the damage to the ecosystem that corporations do, which is another arm of government. Corporations are legal entities that are protected by government. They wouldn't exist in a libertarian or anarchic society, and I think that's tragic. So government is subsidizing GMOs to try and help the remnants of the damage the government did in the past. Albert Einstein said, we can't solve problems by using the same thinking that was used to create them. So I think anyone that is of a libertarian or a anarcho-capitalist mindset, you'd probably acknowledge that the market is way better at fixing problems through competition and the allocation of resources and investment. You'd probably agree that we could easily see these areas begin to turn themselves around, as opposed to trying to throw them some GMOs that are supposedly going to cure their deficiency, or to cure their pest problems, or to cure their yield problems. So I really want to emphasize the fact that I'm not against scientific research. I'm not against scientific evidence when it's absolutely clear it's not coming from a place of bias. So what it does come down to then is whether or not you truly believe GMOs are harmful or not. That video is another one in the coming, as I mentioned. But that, I think, was some unique perspectives that hopefully some libertarians who might come to this video because of the title will consider. Harper just pulled the plug on some regulations on this one aspect of healthcare in Canada, which was designed to, help the public in having shorter lineups at emergency rooms and things. I think he's saving $6 million per year doing that, which is, $6 million, that's great, but it's not a huge amount compared to other things. And he's not allowing private industry to come up alongside public healthcare yet, as far as I know. So it's actually just doing more harm than good, because now people just have crappier access to healthcare. Perhaps his mentality is that, well, then people get more annoyed with healthcare and will eventually demand private healthcare, which I'd be happy for, but yeah, it's all very complex. Politics is interesting. I'm definitely heavily lean towards absolutely no state. I would prefer that, but I think if we were to have a controlled demolition of state, that would be ideal for where we're currently at, because when you have certain parts being augmented and you are against any more state being created, but just this little addition might protect people a little more, that's kind of missing the bigger picture. In my opinion, we should just get out of the way. But yeah, hopefully that made some sense. It's a little bit of a intellectual and philosophical type video here. Let me know if you're going to be at the Bitcoin conference, because I'd love to hang out just in the lobby in between talks, or just run into people I might recognize and say hi. If you want to go, you can get tickets at the link below. And you saw that image on the screen, you can actually save 15% off your ticket. This isn't even an affiliate, I'm just wanting to help them promote it, because I have a lot of friends that are involved in the event, whether running it or speaking, and I want to see more people out there. So that's this upcoming weekend, Saturday to Sunday, April 11th, 13th. I believe there's something Friday night, but it's a dinner and that's an extra cost if you want to attend that. So with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.